Hello everyone who likes to take big steel strides with big steel boots. I am BorderWise and welcome back to From the Depths Neater Faction Overviews. And it's finally time for everyone, or at least a lot of people's favorite faction, the Steel Striders. Yes, the, I guess, World War II to modern day style faction from real life. And the closest thing to an honorable faction to fight, at least in my opinion. And let me clarify what I mean by that. Aside from a whole bunch of submarines, which, again, your mileage might vary on whether that's cheesy at all, the Steel Striders is perhaps the least cheesy faction in Nita, which is probably why a lot of people really like them. And on that note, people also consider them to be harder than previous factions. In particular, you'll notice in the lineup here that the Twin Guard is kind of before them, and also, skipping ahead looking at the map, generally people fight the Twin Guard before they fight the Steel Striders. Twin Guard are kind of over here, Steel Striders are over here. Most people come at these two from the south after clobbering the Deepwater Guard and the Onyx Watch. I personally find the Twin Guard harder than these guys, but that is something to mention, is that it's probably because the Twin Guard counter my usual build style in build preference more than the Steel Striders do, and From the Depths is quite a subjective experience. Like, depending on how you play the game, you're going to find some factions harder than others, and this is slightly different for everybody. So, that's probably my personal bias there. Just note that throughout this video. Your mileage may vary about how hard these guys actually are. So, I've already touched on a little bit the map characteristics. This kind of patch of the land is where the Steel Striders start out. They've got the Twin Guard over to the west, and they've got the Scarlet Dawn over to the east, and that's generally why players, myself included, generally come at them from the south or from the west. Like, you beat the Onyx Watch, maybe you want to skip the Twin Guard, you go at the Steel Striders from the south, or you've beaten up the Twin Guard, and eastward you go. Now, you'll notice there's a lot of land around here, and I'm going to do a bad thing to this poor Excalibur right here by teleporting us over here to the hilly bit. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, girl. You are a beautiful ship, but for the sake of comedy and explanation, I have now stranded you on land. Alright, so you'll notice this is rough, hilly terrain, and there's quite a lot of it. In fact, the way their HQs are distributed, I believe one over here, one over here, one over here, and then another one over here. 4 HQs, all doing different things. And you're going to get a lot of planes flying at you from over this landmass, so don't rely just on ships. It's generally a good idea to have flying craft in your force anyway, if you're playing From the Depths. In fact, really, like, all your stuff can fly, and it's probably a good idea, because there's not much reason not to fly in From the Depths. But around here, the Steel Striders love to send jets at people. I actually think their main airbase, the HQ that produces aircraft, likes to sit around here. So if you're coming from over here, they're constantly sending airplanes at you over this land, which is, well, impassable to ships. This little channel is not very helpful for a big battleship. I will demonstrate that by having the Excalibur teleport in here. You can see here there's like patches of shallow water, and yeah, From the Depths ships generally don't play well with terrain avoidance, ever. Let's see how well this does as we sail out of this channel. So bear that in mind, do have flyers when you come to face them. In fact, copy them and have a mixed force, like as much as possible. On a note of their HQs, and I've already touched on this, they have 4 different HQs, and I should probably point them out at the very least. I don't quite remember which one is which. So it's the, what is it we call it? You've got the Damascus, we've got the Iceberg Logistics Hub, you have the Submarine Pen, and I think the Dockyard? Maybe for a forward operating base as well. Basically, their 4 HQs are all specialized to produce different kinds of craft. You've got your, and again, apologies, I don't remember which one does which. So they've got one that produces standard ships, like this one, the Excalibur. They've got one that produces planes and helicopters. They've got one that produces submarines. And they've got one that produces special, more sci-fi ships, which are the Shark ships. At least, that's what I think. It could have been updated. I might be fibbing a little bit. So, no matter what, you are probably going to run into a whole variety of craft, and speaking of their craft, we should talk about the faction characteristics. As the Excalibur so beautifully illustrates it right here, their shtick is all about realistic-ish, or at the very least, believable ships, planes, helicopters, and submarines. Which kind of hinders them a little bit, because From the Depths physics is wacky. It is the wackiest of the tobacco. Which means that you can get away with things that you can't really get away with in real life. In particular, you can get away with gigantic armored airships, which are faster, more maneuverable, more durable, and bigger than any real-life ship could possibly be. And the Steel Striders don't make use of those things at all, which makes them, in a way, considerably less scary than later factions, in particular the Grey Talons and the Scarlet Dawn, and even some prior ones. The Twin Guard have some very scary flying things that are pretty much scarier than most flying things that the Steel Striders have to offer. But honestly, again, one of the reasons that people really like the Steel Striders is because it's beautiful, believable craft that you're fighting, and there's no gimmicky stuff like repair tentacles or warp craft or stuff like that, and they're not spamming lasers and plasma and all that stuff. They do have the odd particle cannon, but that honestly just makes them cooler, because it fits in with what they're doing, this kind of modern advanced aesthetic, you could say. They do really like missiles. The Excalibur is not the best example of that. I will spawn in a little ship. All vehicle types. Let's spawn in the Banshee. Where are you? Let's spawn the Banshee right in front of the Excalibur. There's no way that could go wrong. It's actually just for giggles. Wow, the Excalibur is... There we go. Let's hop on the Banshee, because that looks cool. She's pointing the wrong way. Oh no. Ah, this looks cool. Ah, look at them avoid each other. From the Depths actually working at avoidance. So anyway, the Banshee is a good example of like a kind of smaller craft that its main weaponry is missiles, and that's it. They are very, very missile happy. They're very torpedo happy, and they use pretty much every kind of missile you can think of. Infrared, radar guided, laser guided, and in particular remote guidance, so you're going to need to pull out every kind of anti-missile trick that you have available to you. So you have missile decoys using missiles, you have LAMs using lasers, you have SEWAs using APS and other stuff if you feel cuckoo crazy, and of course you have a whole bunch of decoys, and especially the signal jammer ECMs, which is the only thing that really works against remote guided missiles. So this, probably more than any other faction, this is the point where you need to start putting ECM jammers on your craft, because there are some very nasty craft that the Steel Striders use, which use remote-guided missiles, and we will point them out in a little while. They also really like planes, so let's see, where's an example of a plane? Probably the Gannet Squadron is... Yep, there we go. Here is a Gannet, as you do. Whoops, what the hell did I just do? Help! Oh. Whee! There we are. So they really do like their planes. They're sexy, sexy planes. And they have a whole bunch of them. There's like 15 different kinds of planes and helicopters that the Steel Striders use. And they're all very fast. Every single one of their aircraft, or their planes rather, fly at over 100 meters per second at least. Most of them fly a lot faster than that. So do remember to bring your hit scan weapons along. On a similar note, they also really like to have drones and sub-vehicles on their ships. Or their one airship, more on them later, which means that the whole secondary weapon with proper target prioritization is essential for fighting these guys. And, yeah, if you're used to fighting Deepwater Guard carriers or Twin Guard drone swarms, you shouldn't have too much problem with that. But really, by this point of the game, by the time you get to these guys, you should have those on your larger craft already, and if you don't, please tell me how on earth you got this far without the Twin Guard bullying you. Alright, and they really do like their railguns. They really like APHE railguns on their nastier craft, but they also like hollow point railguns, which is very punishing if you like to use swarms of smaller craft. You can imagine something like the Gannet here hit by a railgun hollow point would basically do a vanishing act. So, yeah. Worth bearing in mind there, they really like their railguns. And as for weapons to use against them, APS, a lot of them. In fact, the Excalibur is carrying the kind of weapons you want to use against them. Perhaps not in this exact configuration, but just like every other faction from the depths, the Steel Striders actually contain within them all the dirty tricks you kind of need to beat them. So the Excalibur has big APS, so yeah, armor penetration in particular, because the Steel Striders, because they're kind of, by their lore and by their aesthetics, kind of use realistic-ish designs, it means their ships are quite narrow, generally. Like, they don't have really thick, chunky craft like other factions do, which means their armor is generally comparatively thin, with a few exceptions. The Excalibur, for instance, is... I think the Excalibur is a regular design, actually. Hold on, let's just check. The Excalibur is... Yep, it's a regular design, so you're quite likely to run into this. The armor is about 3 meters thick at the thickest point. 3, maybe 4, depending on how you grant it. There's some heavy armor hither and thither. But yeah, 2 to 3 meters of armor, and that's nothing. Lots of empty space in here, but you can even look in here at the main gun. What do we got here? We have, at most, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 9 layers of material, but this is actually a wall of a compartment, so it's actually a lot less. So a nice hefty railgun will go straight through this thing, and a lot of their more advanced craft is not much better. The tier, for instance, just has like 7 meters of slopes, with 2 layers of heavy armor beam slopes in there, which is decent, but a proper armor-piercing round off a railgun or a cram will punch straight through it, so bring your armor-piercing rounds. They also tend to be smoked, like pretty much all their expert and godly craft. Their ships, at least, are smoked, so lasers don't work very well against them, and some craft actually start out smoked. So, let's see, where did I put the Spectre? Spectre, where are you? There you are. So, some of them, the Banshee and the Spectre, are both very similar craft, by the way. They kind of... Let's see. Did they spawn in smoked? No, they didn't. I think these guys only spawn in smoked if something nasty is spawned in. Let's spawn in... Let's spawn in a Harbinger, just to see what happens. You can see there, poof! So things like the Spectre or the Banshee, they will be smoked mainly to full cameras, so if you're reliant a little bit too much on visual detection, you might have a little bit of an issue with these particular craft. Oh my goodness, there could be... Uh-oh. No, no, no. Friendly fire, friendly fire, friendly fire! Ah! But yeah, lasers are not your primary weapon anymore. They probably haven't been for a while by this point of the game. Oh, this poor Harbinger is absolutely going to get curb stomped. Oh my goodness, it is quite fun to like... Oh, that gun volley is so nice. Whee! This is what we like to see. Kablooey, big guns firing. Alright, you can use missiles, but generally Steel Strider's craft tend to have decent missile defense. Like, they're expert and above craft. They have good decoys, they have good flares, they have good seawers. They do like their seawers a lot. You can actually see here that armor-piercing shells are really doing a number on the Excalibur, just popping off secondary guns like no one's business. Seawers are going kablooey. What else? You can use missiles, like I said, but you have to use more of them, or you have to use them in a quite, in a way that's a little bit more clever. Like having planes surround them and firing them from all directions, for instance. What else? What can we say? Their submarines, I should mention, are very torpedo-proof, and I will spawn in one of their most torpedo-proof submarines, just so you can see here. Where is the Wolin? Where is the Wolin? Come over here. The Wolin is... How much is it? The Wolin is right there. I actually remember the cost of things better than where they are in the alphabet. So you'll see that the Wolin is a submarine, and it has a very suspicious-looking minigun on top of it, which is beautifully decoed. That is an underwater seawers. And that tears through torpedoes like no one's business, and it also has interceptors and a sonar decoy, which it chucks off the back. So the Wolin actually gave me a horrible surprise the one time I tried playing From the Depths on the hardest difficulty in the hardest starting spot, literally years ago. I was not prepared for underwater seawards. My bad. Gorgeous submarine, I do have to say. But yeah, their subs tend to be, at least their bigger, meaner subs tend to be quite torpedo-proof, so this is the point in the game where, if you haven't already, supercavitating APS and particle cannons are probably going to be more helpful for dealing with these submarines than torpedoes, particularly sonar torpedoes. Okay then, so packs I've mentioned. As per usual, particle cannons are just your screw it, I want this thing dead button. Especially piercing, because again, generally strong but thin armor on most Steel Strider designs. And a few Steel Strider ships have quite centralized ammunition compartments, which is very vulnerable to Alpha Strike piercing weapons of any kind, particularly packs. So let's see if we can find one. The Sharks tend to be a bit like this, where is a shark, I believe. Where is a shark? Where is a shark? Where is a shark? Where is a shark? Yeah, where is a shark? Okay, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there tend to be similar patterns of... Yep, right here. So the Tiger Shark is, it's a pretty scary design. It has big missiles, but yeah, this is a major weakness of it. In that the ammunition tends to be... Yeah, it's all centralized in this one compartment. And yeah, it is sealed off from each other, but yeah, if you get a railgun round going through this point, it does blow them up. So that is something worth mentioning, is that piercing weapons do great against Steel Strider's design. I mean, piercing weapons generally do great against everything, but because these aren't loaded with heavy armor wedges, as some craft in Niter are, they tend to be kind of vulnerable to sabot shells and armor-piercing railguns or piercing pack. So if you blow up this one compartment, this thing has no more ammunition anymore and is pretty easy to finish off. So note there, packs work great. And crams, speaking as a lifelong cram gunner, from the moment I was born I loved cram. That's not true, but it might as well be. The crams are hit and miss, literally, against the Steel Striders. Some of their craft crams work great against, others are like basically immune to cram. The Tiger Shark, for instance, has a top speed of 32 meters per second. It's not especially fast or especially small, so this is a great cram target. But other ships, such as, where is it? The Valiant is a one, or the Valiant or the Type 19. You can see that the top speed is 54 meters per second. The Valiant actually less so. Some of their ships are very fast, and of course their submarines and their fast planes are basically immune to cram cannons unless you are Lathrix and can just do whatever you like in From the Depths because you're just that good at it. Shout out to Lathrix, still making awesome From the Depths content after all these years. Plasma works brilliantly against the Steel Striders because their designs tend to be very compact. You can see in the Tiger Shark, actually, this is it's got a big air gap in the front. But aside from that, actually it's got big air gaps anyway. This is not a good example. It tends to be they're more... Alright, maybe Plasma isn't the best thing against some of their ships, but they have compact bits of their ship, which is great for shooting at with Plasma. Actually, shooting them from above with Plasma actually works pretty well. Let's... we can demonstrate right now with the only Plasma craft I currently have, which I actually like. Where is the Valiant? We can spawn in the Valiant right there. That's actually too close, and is on the wrong team. Never mind, I'm a silly boy. Silly boy. Valiant over there, and we spawn in that greatest of things. Where's the toaster? There's the toaster. Remember the toaster? I do. Pew, pew. So it's been barely a few seconds and it's already like 73,000 plasma damage. And just melt, especially against their aircraft, which are very small, very compact. A nice fast plasma thing does horrible things to them. Horrible, horrible things. That poor Drameo. So yeah, Plasma works great. At this point of the game, by the way, you probably have enough resources to have some pretty hefty plasma guns, so it's worth using them at this point, if only to prepare for the factions which come next. Hint, hint. And speaking of being prepared, we should probably mention the craft to watch out for. The Valiant's not one of them. This isn't the scariest thing. But the planes, as the Dromeos just demonstrated, are mostly just annoying. And a nice hit-scan weapon, laser, pack, or even just a high-velocity plasma or APS is enough to take that out. There is one exception to the kind of plane, which is tremendously bad news, and that is the Mobula. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. This thing is probably the scariest of the planes they have, because it's very big, very mean, it's fast as hell, 150 meters per second, and it is a pack bomber. Which means you can't shoot down its main payload. It's going to fly over you, and that is a scatter length. Let's see, what you packing in this pack? Yeah, this thing hurts like you wouldn't believe. Alright, let's spawn in, what's a 600k? Spawn in an Excruciator. Let's see if the Mobula can take this on. Lots of missiles coming in hard and fast. Also has a lambs on it and like absolutely crazy amounts of small missiles. And are you gonna do it? Yep. Laggy amounts of particle cannon damage. What did that do? I see lots of missile components just flattened. Yeah, see, that's what impact a pack can do to you. It hurts like hell. Almost took this thing's rear clean off, actually. It also has little guns on it, just peppered. So it's like the worst combination of a space-age B-2 Spirit and also an AC-130. And speaking of an AC-130, honorable mention goes to the Aero Tyrant, which, while it's not nearly as scary as the Mobula, I'm going to spawn this in on Steel Striders because, you know, let's enjoy the chaos. Chaos comes for you. The Aero Tyrant does look absolutely dope, and it would be an absolute criminal to not mention it. I can be bribed by aesthetics, as it turns out. Again, this is not the scariest plane they have. It is too big to really be evasive, but it does have cool guns on it. And it's going after the Mobula, which is perhaps not the smartest thing for it to do, because the Mobula is going to have a harder time shooting it down. Like so, lots of missiles, lots of missiles. Bang, 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 lots of missiles, lots of guns. This is basically a flying tank. With a lovely little face on it. And a turret in the nose, which I should really copy one of these days. So yeah, big scary planes, particularly the Mobula, although the Mobula just got bullied on both sides. Also, it's on fire now. Looks like its steam engines got taken out. The worst submarines, they have a bunch of submarines, the Steel Striders do. Let's just delete all these vehicles. I will spawn in the rudest of the submarines. Where is it? Submarines. So the Remora, Panther, Typhoon, Blacktip Shark, Tsunami, Wolin. The Wolin and the Blackcurrant are the worst ones. The Wolin, as I've mentioned before, because it has a Sea Whiz on top of it, which makes it really torpedo resistant. You need large torpedoes in order to really, and a big volley of them to really put a dent on this guy at all. And the Blackcurrant is just friggin' massive. It's just really big. Does this have it does have torpedoes. It's just really big, and it's got nice, big missiles. Hold on a minute. I believe... Aha! It does the thing. Alright. Also cool thing is that this thing only dives when enemies are near. Let's spawn in a fun thing. Let's bully a stronghold, shall we? All vehicle types. Stronghold is over there. Onyx Watch is, even in this day and age, really fun to bully with submarines. Nice little spin block hatches for its huge missiles. Lots of big missiles. Whee! So yeah, the Blackcurrant is pretty much the poster child for, like, did you bring enough missile defense along? And if you didn't, what the hell is wrong with you? It'd be quite interesting to see, actually, if the combined torpedo defense of a Wolin and a Blackcurrant can take out these stronghold torpedoes, because these things are infamously hard to stop. They're not actually going to manage it, and that is impressive. Wow. Well, that's one way to deal with the Blackcurrant. 4 huge torpedoes. This thing's now out of control. Oh dear. But how's the stronghold doing? How is the stronghold? How you doing? How you doing? How's your father? Not great by the looks of it. You are 84% health and dropping by a lot. Whee! So yeah, use torpedoes, signal processors, preferably supercavitation APS and PAC to deal with submarines like this. Otherwise, you're going to have a very, very bad day. There are a bunch of aircraft carriers. There's 2 in particular worth noting. Aircraft carriers are not the scariest category of craft from the depths, because if you remember to bring your lasers, bring your packs, bring your fast APS shells, it's not a huge problem. It is where is it? What was the thing called? It's called the Analaris and the Whale Shark, I believe, are the 2 big carriers. Like the Valiant and the Type 19 and other stuff like that, they kind of have aircraft along for the ride. But it's the Analaris and the Whale Shark, which are the real, actual aircraft carrier type aircraft carriers. So the Analaris looks like this. It just has a crap ton of Hakes, which is an easy level design, I believe. Or is it? Where is the Hake? It's a medium. Why did I say regular? Oh well, regular, medium. But anyway, so this guy just throws a whole bunch of fighters at you. If you can deal with little medium missile swarms and laser them, you should be fine, while you just hammer the rest of it. The Whale Shark is a bit more of a problem because it has a greater variety of aircraft on it. These are unique aircraft, actually. These are Exocets, which in real life is an anti-ship missile, but not for this guy. And it also has this fella, which is the Squale, or Squale, which is, I believe, a pack bomber. It is no, it's a magnet bomber, and yes, a pack bomber at the same time. So this is like a travel-sized Mobula that this thing carries with it, which is worth noting. And like the Mobula, it also has an absolutely big, silly particle cannon right at the front. So it's not just the planes it carries, which are dangerous. It's also the pack in the front. The ship itself is quite dangerous. And like all Sharkcraft, hey, this is the first Sharkcraft I'm showing off. Not to be confused with Starcraft. Stars and sharks are different things. It's got like torpedoes in the front. It's got, let's see, I've never really looked at the armor on the Whale Shark. Let's have a squiz. It's not bad. We've got 1, 2, air gap, lots of surge protectors. Deacon's Christmas, have some surge protectors. Yeah, armor is not spectacular. It's almost Onyx Watch-like in terms of lots of empty space, just relying on bulk. And also probably relying on the planes to act as distraction. So, frontal armor, not great. So, as I said before, if you have decent piercing shots, you can go straight through Steel Strider's designs for the most part. But yeah, aircraft carriers, not the scariest thing. They're just bad if you're not prepared for them. There is one airship, which, like I said before, the Steel Striders do love their drones and their sub-vehicles and stuff like that. Let's go, where are you? I believe you are a herd thing. There you are, it's the Novgorod. So this thing is weird. This is I believe hang on, there's a way to check this. Airships. Yep, this is the only airship that the Steel Striders had. And it's just basically a flying lump of missiles. So if you shrink at the blocks, you can see what's in here. It's got an annoying little lambs. It's got lots of redundant propellers. It has ammunition parked just over the lasers, which is not the best idea ever. Nice radar-guided missiles, lots of them, and it spawns in with 2 little friends, which are the Oblakas, rather. Which are just the same kind of craft, but smaller. And it's like, actually, these guys are pack and missile interceptors. Fascinating. These are the defense. When the horse jumps over a defense, the feet go before the tail. Interesting. These are just like putting the missile defense like out somewhere else. And I guess a little bit of radar-guided missiles as well. This thing can be a pain in the butt. I do remember shooting at this thing in days gone by, because it is decently fast, 81 meters per second, and it is also decently tanky for a flying thing, just because it has this thick ring around the edge of just solid metal. This is actually thicker armor than what you find on a lot of Steel Strider's ships, to be perfectly honest. This is thicker armor than what's on the Excalibur. It's got heavy armor beams just in the bottom of it, just to make things particularly irritating. And large missile hatches over there. So yeah, it is a reasonably tanky airship, and is about the most airshipy airship the Steel Striders have, because it's their only airship. Worth keeping an eye out for this thing. It's a bit of a pain if you don't see it coming. Okay, and also anything with remote-guided missiles, of which there is a bunch. There's two in particular, apart from the one I want to mention later. I should have drank more water today. Alright, so, where are you? Stralsund and the Asphodel. The Asphodel, I think, is one of the more infamous craft that the Steel Striders have, but both the Stralsund and the Asphodel, oh boy, they like their remote-guided missiles, and the Stralsund has heat missiles, which are particularly dangerous. It's why this thing's so expensive, despite the fact it's not that big, not really, just over 10,000 blocks. And the Asphodel is just missile crazy. Just the chair, wheel, and fire computer. You don't need anything else, do you? What? Oh, lots of people contributed on this. Special thanks to the following people. Eudaimania, Violet, The Boat, Carbengo, can't read that. Fact2, Fufufufite, and Frostbite. And Ray Cast for delaying this project for entirely real. And a person who's Japanese, I take it. So apologies for not being able to read that. It's worth checking inside Neatercraft, by the way, because the builders, as any proud craftsman, they do leave little fun notes for people. But anyway, the Asphodel is absolutely lousy with big missiles, and yep, once again, heat missiles, lots of them. Just in this one part of the ship, there's 4 times 6, which is 4 times 6 is 24 large missiles. There's some more missiles over here, little missile interceptors. What else is there? They've got a Dromeo around here, just forget. No, that's the Penguin. I call everything the Dromeo, apparently. AI Mantlet. What the hell is it? Oh, that's an APS. It doesn't look like one, but it is. What else is there? What else have we got here? We've got lots of stuff here, right? Do you have torpedoes in the back? You do not, interestingly enough. So yeah, both these guys, nuts for missiles, absolutely nutty. Peanutty butter for missiles. And it's worth showing off just how powerful that these heat missiles can be, because really, getting shot by them. In fact, this, if you've been relying on flares and decoys for your missile defense for the most part, throughout this whole campaign, you're going to get a rude shock once you start running into these guys. I do believe maybe the Twin Guard have some remote missiles, but I don't quite remember. But the Steel Striders are very, very fond of them. And this is the worst part of them, is that unlike radar-guided missiles or infrared missiles, self-guided, these things all tend to go straight for the same spot and focus down a particular block, which means they penetrate straight through. That is a lot of damage. And the Stronghold, being mostly empty space, is pretty heat-proof, but just the thump and HE damage is enough to... Yep, well, 5% health, there you go. Combined Asphodel and Stralsund. So, those two are worth keeping out for, because those missiles really, really hurt. There is another honorable mention I'd like to mention, because this thing was a pain in the arse the first time I ran into it. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? The Kitakami. So, this thing doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look too big. That's the wrong team. Wrong team. I keep doing this. Rawston's laughing at me in chat. Just you watch. Anyway. Kitakami. Kitakami also has a penguin on the back. Neat. So this guy is a problem simply because this actually is a bit like the Alcazar, really, except kind of worse in that it's more durable than it looks. It is cheap enough that the Steel Striders is probably going to spam them at you if they can possibly help it. And this thing is quite missile-proof. It's got a railgun in the front, it's got a particle cannon in the back, it's got a little sea-whiz in the back as well, it's got missiles, it's got... does it have torpedoes? Do you have torpedoes anywhere? Tell me your torpedo secrets. Does not look like it. Then again, it doesn't really need them because it has the particle cannon, doesn't it? This guy is particularly irritating because it's not the Kitakami has a lambs and it has sea-whiz, but the penguin it carries along with it. I'm going to spawn in a palisade on Godly because we need that. Where are you? Not where is it? There. Let's... whoa, that was fast, just in time. So this right here is one of the big problems. Is one of the big problems with the Kitakami. Is that this drone drops a... wait, no, I think that's a sonar buoy, not a radar decoy. Oops. They changed that! I remember that, they changed it. And now the Palisade's gonna win because the Palisade is annoyingly good at ignoring decoys. Uh-oh. I've accidentally demonstrated how much missile is enough to blow a Kitakami to pieces. Let's even this up a little bit, shall we? So yeah, that's small. This is why the Kitakami can be unexpectedly durable. There's a layer of heavy armor and applique in there, which means that against things you might expect to work against a ship this small, it's only 100 meters long, generally doesn't work very well. It's managing to shrug off those large missiles because the heavy armor, that is all over it really, is, doesn't really care. It's just like, yeah, nah, hit me more, please. So surprisingly durable, and just a compact little boat, cheap enough for the Steel Striders to spam at you. Keep an eye on this, and that particle cannon actually hits like a truck. Let's have a look at this. Very expertly decoed, by the way. Can you... stop. Alright, so it's a piercing pack, which makes it worse. Yeah, 50,000 damage, 4 beams. Kablooey. I think in one combat test I did against the Palisade, it actually managed to AI dead the thing. Or it shot the transmitter off the AI, which is impressive to say the least. So yeah, that piercing pack is honestly the main reason to be scared of this thing. Alright, now we get into the sharks! There's a lot of sharks. I already showed off the tiger shark. The sharks actually run the full range of the Steel Strider's difficulty spectrum. There are easy sharks and there are harder sharks, and we're going to mention the 4 sharks which I think are probably the most annoying sharks. So let's go here. There's nothing that could possibly go wrong from spawning 4 big ships all at once. So we have the basking shark, wherever that is. We have the basking shark, we have the great white, we have the thresher shark, and we have the megalodon. These are the 4 in particular you should be scared of. Honorable mention to the bull shark, which used to be a lot scarier, but it's armed mainly with flak cannons, and so it's pretty bad against anything with decent armor. So, yeah. Like bull shark, not as scary as it used to be. But these 4, and I'm going to do them in order of size, perhaps. Everyone stop moving, please, because I don't want you to collide with each other. Let's go back there. There's the thresher shark, looking very unassuming. So those of you, I hope you remember the Onyx Watch Trebuchet, because this is this thing's meaner, more scientifically advanced cousin. This is a double railgun hollow point, 500 millimeters, and the shells hurt like crazy. So, super cavitating sabot hollow point, armor piercing of 63, so it does full damage to heavy armor. And by the way, hollow point doesn't actually care about armor stacking, so or the angle that it hits at, so it's very reliable damage. Can just rip chunks off your craft and is death to smaller craft. and it spits this out really fast. And so yeah, you are going to need to have very thick, lots of hit points to deal with this thing shooting at you. And because it's a front-sider, it's best not to face it from the front. Get above it, get below it, get behind it. So keep an eye out for this thing. The name is the Thresher. What else do we have over here? We have the Baskin Shark. I hate this thing. This thing's very annoying. This thing actually reminds me a lot of the Twin Guard Alarmed, in that the ship itself is not particularly durable. Oh, it's got little flappy things on the front there. That's so cool. And it's got a gaping mouth like a Baskin Shark. That's so neat. But anyway, it has huge remote-guided missiles. So if I shrink the... Oh, wait, no. I should do this first. Cut away the skin. Those are huge thumper missiles. Remote-guided. These things hurt like you wouldn't believe. So they also have 400,000 health. And what is the thump damage? So impact damage per meters per second is 3,680. So I'm going to check my calculator on the screen right here. So let's do the math. 3,680 times the top speed of 211. Whoop! So almost 800,000 thump damage with an impact AP of 15 per shot. So this thing is a real punishment for the glass cannon builds that I have been focusing on lately, because this kind of thump damage just rips blocks to pieces. And you basically have to swarm this thing with fast aircraft, or submarines preferably, because it is a giant remotely guided middle finger to your big battleship, which you spent hundreds of hours building. In that way, like I said, it's a lot like the Alarmed. It's like, oh, did you want a really expensive repair bill because a much cheaper craft showed up to hard counter your size? Here you go! Boy. And we also have over... Did I spawn 2 mega... No, I didn't. The Great White is... I don't know. This thing is specialized. It is probably the biggest and nastiest cram craft that the Steel Striders have, and probably the biggest, nastiest cram craft that is not in the Grey Talons, because it's got these 3 pretty darn big quad cram turrets in the front. Let's see, does this have 3D Tetris? It does not. This Tetris is actually not very good. Shakes head. But yeah, this thing has a lot of big cram cannons. So if you forget about the need to defend your craft against cram cannons by the time you're fighting the Steel Striders, this thing will show up to remind you that, yeah, in certain situations, crams are very, very dangerous. Let's have a look at the shell health here. It's about 27,000, which is pretty respectable. Quad crams are not the most effective crams, but they do a hell of a lot of damage. 40,000 kinetic, almost 60,000 explosive, and that's per cram shell. It fires 12 of them at you all at once. Possibly a bigger issue is the huge missiles back here, which are just straight up active radar, explosive things. There's nothing subtle about the Great White, and these are pure Seawiz, by the way. It only has 1 AI, and it has more crams hidden in the side here. They're not especially powerful, I don't think. Let's have a look at their stats. So they're actually pretty darn powerful. They're actually of a similar power to the main cram cannons over there. But yeah, oh my word, what Tetris is this? That is truly interesting. Truly interesting Tetris. There's no way in hell I'm going to talk smack about a neater design. But yeah, this is interesting, what the Great White is doing. But yeah, this is just to remind you that, hey, did you remember to make your craft fast enough to dodge crams and give your active defenses time to shoot down large missiles? I hope you did. And the Neg is not doing the best of jobs. Just get yourself out of the water, girl. What are you doing? So the Meg is a legend in the From the Depths community. It was probably one of the first, I guess, boss craft, inverted commas, added to the game. And in fact, I think my video on the Meg's debut is still one of the most viewed on the channel. People love the Meg. People love fighting the Meg. It's a very good benchmark, actually. She is scary. She is not the scariest boss craft, I have to say. Other, like, craft are honestly more scary than this. In particular, the Gravitas scares me way more than this thing does. But she is basically the opposite of the Gravitas. The Gravitas is a duelist. It's meant to, like, just absolutely punish you if you've got one big ship, just doing everything, just puts holes straight through you with its stupid pack gun. The Megalodon is the opposite. If you're focusing on swarming things with lots of medium-sized ships or aircraft, the hollow points that these things have, it's basically like, it's a lot like the Thresher Shark, in that these are big-as 500mm hollow point railguns, very similar design, and very similar damage, slightly less armor piercing, but 27,000 thump damage per shell. It has 12 of those in 3 turrets. It also has, no wait, I want to sit on Meg. Meg, come back to me. It also has a bunch of large missiles, because why not? EMP frag, radar seekers. It also has a crap ton of torpedoes back here. These are interesting. These are torpedo interceptors and sonar target simulators. Where are your torps, girl? They're in the front here. Here you go. Here you go. There are these nice big torpedoes, of which there is a plenty. She also has probably one of the best lambs in meter. I can't think off the top of my head a better one. I think the Gravitas might have a better one. But yeah, it's split into 2 systems. So we've got one big honking lambs in the front here, and we've got another big honking lambs over here. I don't think these are separate laser systems. They are, let's just see, they are not separate. But yeah, lots of damage. Let's see how much damage we can do per lambs node. Alright, so same damage per second is like 23,544, 60 intensity. So yeah, this is very strong lambs. In fact, the Megalodon is one of the things I recommend to people to test against for your cram cannons. If your cram cannons can get past the lambs of this, and past this pure kinetic railgun Seaways over here, yeah, it's probably a pretty strong cram cannon. Bonus particle cannons on the side. The trick with the Meg is basically big armor-piercing shells, and this is a broadsider, so try front-siding it. I did a whole series of Most Wanteds on this thing. But yeah, APHE railguns, hopefully you can pierce through. In particular, AP railguns aiming below the waterline, so the lambs can't shoot at them, is one of your better bets with dealing with this thing. And don't try and swarm it. Those hollow points will swat smaller craft out of the sky like no one's business, and the shells are very hard to dodge. Submarines? Hell no, this thing is a submarine killer, because supercavitation APS, big torpedoes, particle cannons, subs don't really work on this thing. And yeah, I mentioned the bull shark. There is something that I'm slightly more scared of than the Meg, and that is not a shark craft, it is the Tyr. Now, the Tyr is not as scary as she used to be. Previous versions of this craft were absolutely damn horrifying, but the modern incarnation is, it's still named after a god of war for a reason. These 3 triple APHE railguns over here. In fact, these might not be APHE. Let's see. What are these things again? Oh, it's AP Frag. Which is, honestly, can be a little bit worse, because, yeah, it just does horrible things. Oh, wait, no. It's AP Frag and AP Heat. Boy. Yeah, so, honestly, if you stuck the Tyr's guns on the Megalodon, you'd have something genuinely scary. The Tyr is a bit of a glass cannon. It doesn't have a lambs. It used to. It used to have an insanely strong lambs. Doesn't anymore. Relies on Seaways and interceptors, which means this is a good cram target. Assuming you can hit it, it drives at 40 meters per second, and is quite a narrow profile. So if you're shooting at it from the front, it's quite likely to maneuver and dodge crams coming from the front. And like before, it is strong armor rather than thick armor. The health of this armor is generally a little bit low. So metal, alloy, beam slope, alloy, beam slope, alloy. So it's decent. It's you're going to struggle to get through this with heat or hesh. But a nice big armor-piercing railgun round, like what the Tyr is packing, would go straight through this pretty much no problem whatsoever. And spamming like medium-sized sabot at this thing generally has pretty good results as well. But one of the main reasons I'm more scared of this is that you're more likely to see it. I've never encountered a Megalodon in the wild in the campaign before, but I think I have run into a tier. This thing is just a little bit over half the cost of a Megalodon, so you're more likely to run into this thing, which is why I'm more scared of it. It's not just how scary the craft is, it's how likely you are to see it, because the more likely you are to see it, the more likely it is to catch you at a bad time. And last but not least, we should talk about two structures that the Steel Striders have, which are quite annoying. I should actually go sit somewhere where these structures usually live. Is this the right place? It might be the right place, or not. So, let's just do this. So, I haven't really mentioned structures that much, or fortresses, in previous faction overviews in craft to watch out for. But the Steel Striders do have two structures that are worth noting. That is the Liberator Cannon and the Revox ICBM facility. So, the Liberator Cannon is just an absolutely bloody monstrous railgun. Yeah, that is all railgun all the time, which can put holes straight through multiple layers of heavy armor, unless I'm misremembering how strong this is. Let's see here, let's go here, go check, armor piercing. Alright, so it's just a gigantic armor piercing APHE round. 39.2 armor pierce, 18,000 explosive damage, but almost 70,000 kinetic damage, which means it punches straight through some stuff. And we've got this, the Revox ICBM facility, and these are just kamikaze suicide things. So, gee, what will happen if a Onyx Watch ship trespasses in Steel Strider's territory, do you think? All vehicle types, oh, I don't know, what's a fun thing to... Oh, a bulwark. Oh, this bulwark is trespassing. So ICBM on the way. Well, we need to look at what that shell will do. It's very hard to stop that shell with lambs, by the way, because there's a lot of solid bodies on it. And whoop! And what did that do? That appears to have, yep. So the Liberator is one of those things that if you've only been testing against the vehicles of the Steel Striders, the Liberator in the ICBM facility is going to say, hello, how's it going? Where did I think the ICBM facility might have blown itself up slightly. Uh-oh, I think these things might be outdated. They might have collision avoidance on. But that's okay. The Liberator will handle this just fine. Where's the Liberator? I go sit on the Liberator. It is a bit of a glass cannon. That gun isn't particularly well defended, I don't think. Let's shrink this. It's also deco to hell. Actually, there's a huge amount of heavy armor in there, so hit it from the sides with heat shells and you should be able to disable it. Whee! Those ICBMs are very confused, but definitely the Liberator is something to worry about. Whee! And that just about does it for the Steel Striders. This video's gone on quite long. There was more to talk about than I thought. They have a lot of craft, by the way. They probably have more craft than any other faction in the game. There's something like 63... 1, 2, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. It's like 63 vehicles all in general. Which means they just have way more than anybody else. So you've got a lovely variety of stuff that's going to come at you when you face the Steel Striders. And I just remembered I should mention the lore. The Steel Striders are the remains of the Steel Empire, and when the Scarlet Dawn showed up, they fought a big war. Twin God defected from the Scarlet Dawn, or at the very least, it was AIs that went rogue. Steel Empire had an alliance with them, but then the Lightning Hoods, the research division of the Steel Empire, stole secrets from the Twin God and ran away, and started their own thing. And then the White Flares took the opportunity to also run away and do their own thing, and the Onyx Watch is probably also ran away and did their own thing, I think, I don't remember. And the Deepwater Guard was just, I don't know, eating paint or something at the same time. I have no idea. Rawson's probably mad at me for saying that. But anyway, how's that for the fastest lore dump ever? So, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon or YouTube membership if you like. It really helps. And there's fun perks in it for you. Thank you to all my current supporters. Do check out my other channels, Border RRR and Border Art. The art streams in particular are great fun. This thing's out of energy. That's hilarious for the Bulwark. And I will see you next time in From the Depths Faction Overviews. Farewell.